Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about living with mental illness. I know that for me personally, if 10, 20 years ago someone had just sat me down and said, this is what you have, this is how it's going to get better, and this is how to live with it, I would have loved to have watched that. And so I'm making this video in the hopes that if there's even one person that finds this helpful or gets some sort of hope from this, that's the point of this video. Basically, living with mental illness well, it's not fun. It's definitely not easy. To give you a very brief background, I'm diagnosed with severe anxiety, severe depression, and an eating disorder. I didn't know until I was an adult how severe my problem was. I somehow didn't even know that I had anxiety or depression in terms of a diagnosis. It, for some reason, never occurred to me. I just thought I was a very anxious human being and a very depressed human being, and I felt a lot of guilt around that before I was diagnosed. Because I just honestly felt like I was just an ungrateful human being, and despite things being sparkly and happy and at many times good in my life, although there's obviously many seriously bad points, I just felt like I was undeserving basically of life, because no matter how many good moments I had, no matter how many times I got through bad times, I just felt like this was just, life was just too much. It was too something I wasn't strong enough for, and thoughts of suicide were just a regular thing for me. It became abnormal for me to not think about suicide on a regular basis. And so I obviously then went through all the cycles of that, where I felt really bad that I felt really bad, and then I felt really bad that I was thinking about suicide, and I felt anxiety and depression about how that would affect other people if I were to commit suicide. And because suicide is like a bad word, or can be, I just felt like I couldn't tell people because they see me as sparkly and Kavina and happy. And a lot of people, I think the thing that makes me laugh the most is when you see those posters of like, this is a person living with mental illness. It just, for me, it's like the opposite of what I experience, where I try so hard to put on a face, put on a mask each day and get through each day. And so whenever I'd see someone, with a sad face on a poster, I was like, well, then I'm a fraud, because apparently I should be just fine if I can smile, if I can laugh, if I can experience good things. So basically what I want to say to you is that if it helps, I am living proof that you can get through it, that you can live with mental illness, that it is, it doesn't need to be seen as a weakness or a thing that you're overcoming. I live with my mental illness. I live alongside the not so happy voices, the not so happy thoughts, and I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying it does get better. If I had even tried to say this to myself 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have been like, you're delusional, it's not getting better, if anything it's getting worse. But now that I've been diagnosed for about 10 years now, I can honestly say that I am shocked of what little things and big things in terms of changes have made in my life. So part of this video is giving you tips. If there's something that you can take from this that helped me, that might help you. I really truly believe that everyone's different. So, if someone has a broken leg, the way to getting better for one person is not the same for another person. But for me, there were things that eventually clicked into place and started working for me, and as I learned those things, I started to build on them and just incorporate them more. So In terms of things that helped, I obviously there's an endless number of things you can do to treat a physical illness, and people just need to remember that for treating mental illness. So there's no one size fits all. There's no easy take this medication, there will be a light at the end of the tunnel, you'll feel better at X period. And I think that's the hardest part about living with mental illness. It is devastating knowing that this may just be how you feel forever. Because there is no off switch to anxiety, there's no off switch to the depression. And that sucks. That is not fun. But it's 100% easier to know that this is not just simply in your head. Obviously it is in your head because it's mental illness, but it's nice knowing that you're not just exaggerating everything, that you're not just feeling bad and therefore you just need to get better, or you're not just feeling anxious and you just need to get yourself out of the anxious situation. It has helped me so much knowing that I'm not just an exaggerated human being. I don't just feel things extra. I actually have something that not everyone has. So lots of people obviously have anxiety and depression, but since I didn't know, I just assumed that I react really badly to a lot of things. Like I thought that, when I get a cold and I'm suddenly hit with a cold and I just cannot find the will to live, that I was just bad when I get sick. I thought that when people said, like, you suck, I would just be like, oh, well then, I should end my life. And I just thought that I had the world's worst exaggerated reactions to things. So now that I know that my reactions are just that, they're just my reactions, and rather than trying to feel bad, that I feel really bad or extra bad when things happen, I now have this ability to say to myself, hang on, is this my anxiety? Is this my depression? And just kind of take a step back. There's also other things that have helped. I found that counseling, or getting counseling, or finding the right counselor is like dating. Not everyone gels with everyone else, and for a while I seriously disliked counselors and therapists and was like, this is the help that I get. Someone wants me to visualize my happy place, or someone wants me to like list out all the bad things and like go through them one by one. And there were many things that didn't work for me, but there are many things that eventually did work for me. I obviously recommend that you do seek some help, and I'll put some links down below for some links for helplines. I can say that one of the biggest differences that I have found is when I found a counselor that could get through to me, that could understand that I wanted a plan. I wanted some sort of light at the end of the tunnel because things were just very dark for me. And it was getting to the point where I couldn't make it through a single day without crying, without coming up with serious plans for how I could commit suicide and when I would do it and everything like that. And so when I finally met someone who was able to speak to me in a way that I could actually hear her and felt that she could hear me, that was one of the first stepping stones to getting to a place where I could actually describe myself as a strong person and as a moderately happy person. And so first step would be finding someone you can talk to, and giving that a real try. You won't necessarily find it on your first go. I think I tried at least 10 different people and was very ready to give up on that and be like, therapy's not for me. But it's like dating. Keep trying, because eventually you'll find the right person and you'll know when it's right, and you'll know if it's the right fit for you. And so there's that. There's other things that obviously that are recommended, and it varies from person to person. But for my anxiety, one thing that really helped me was I have this weighted blanket, basically. I didn't know at the time that there were panic attacks, but I found that when I have panic attack or I'm experiencing pretty bad anxiety, I feel like I'm exploding. And it's a very, I don't wish that upon my worst enemy. It's probably one of the most worst experiences I've had in my life. Panic attacks are not fun. And it is, for me being a relatively controlling person, it is wildly scary and painful to feel like you literally can't get a handle on anything. You are exploding in your mind. You can't feel like you can get a grip. You are moderately hysterical. And for me, I usually have a very small window in which I can do something about it. If I have a panic attack, there's very little I can do. But the weighted blanket was something I discovered, that essentially if I weighed myself down, the sensation that I was exploding would stop a little bit sooner, or would stop altogether. But if I'm having a bad day, or my anxiety is just really hurting me, basically, I go into my blanket and try and just basically feel safe again. And that's a lot of what I'd say about mental health, is about trying to find a way to feel safe in your mind. In terms of explaining mental health to people, I think the one thing I can say is that it is so different having a moment of anxiety or having a moment of depression than it is living with anxiety or living with depression, because it's extremely terrifying to know that this is just how you'll live, that you will just always feel that depressed state or always feel that anxious, and that instead of other people who will have moments and then it's over and then they're back to their normal baseline, that instead we will have that anxiety and that depression level, and there is no light at the end of the tunnel per se. As I've said, I've learned to live with anxiety. So instead of fearing my anxiety or fearing my depression, I've learned to live each day as an accomplishment, which it sounds probably silly to a lot of people, but for me, making it through each day, at least in the start, now it's much easier, making it through each day, that was such a huge accomplishment for me, to make it through a day and cry a little less, or make it through a day and not cry, or make it through a day where I actually found something that gave me a moment of happiness, and just essentially learning about myself, and not feeling like I was a burden on the entire planet. That's how I've got to this point where I can proudly say I have anxiety, I have depression, and I'm doing my best. I'm doing okay. It's okay not to be okay. It's something that I've learned that I don't have to apologize for. It's something that I've learned that lots of people around me suffer from. I wanted to make this video so that you could hear that it can get better, that it does get better, that it may not seem like it at first, but you will get to a space, and it is possible to get to a space where you can say, you know what, I'm okay today. I've been okay for many days in a row. But also, it's okay that I'm not okay today. I'm so proud, really proud, to be in a place where I can say that despite my anxiety and despite my depression, that I am so happy and proud of what I've managed to achieve living with the feelings and the thoughts that I do. Doing this video, I thought endlessly about how I could do it, what I could say, and there's if there's just a bit of hope I can give someone, knowing that it's possible to live with this, it's possible to feel okay. I wish someone could have told me, and I wish I could have watched a video like this so that I could know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that things can get better, that there are that you have to treat it like a physical illness. So the same way that someone would, you know, if you break your leg, you go to the doctor. You don't just try to, you know, set it yourself and hope for the best and just struggle through, which is what I feel like a lot of people do with mental illness. I really stress that mental illness has to be treated like a physical illness. If you are not okay, go get help. So, you know, and for a broken leg, to use my example from before, you know, it's not just a matter of going to the doctor, they put a cast on it, and then you rest and then do some physical exercise or physiotherapy or something, and then it's better. It takes time. It's different for everyone. There may be bumps along the way, literal bumps, if you're wearing a cast, and it's something that has to be monitored, and you know, you could be at risk of breaking that same leg again. It's not quite ever going to fit back the way it should, and there's things you have to do to make sure that you strengthen that leg and make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Same thing with your mind. It's not the same for everyone. It may not be, not everyone needs a cast, and so not everyone needs necessarily medication. It's not something that you can just say, okay, fix, that's a fix, the end, I'm done with doctors, it will just heal now. It takes work, and it takes time to see results. Same with a broken bone. We don't have a miracle thing where it's like, bam, your leg's back together. You know, you're going to have to deal with crutches maybe, and then you might have to deal with the sores from crutches. There's a lot that goes along with a physical illness, and mental illness is the same. And so for some reason that message is really hard for some people who are experiencing it to understand, as well as people who are trying to help someone with a mental illness. It's hard for some people to understand that living with a mental illness is like a physical illness. It takes time, it takes work, but with time and with work, I am living proof that you can live a sparkly, happy life, that you can get through it, that you will be able to find a way to not feel guilty, that you don't react to things the way other people do. I've dealt with jealousy for a really long time. I was like, how do other people wake up happy or ready to deal with the day? For me, it was not so easy. I was like, darn, here I am again. I'm still alive. I have to do this all over again. I have to make it through the day. That's something that I had to work on, and something that I had to find a lot of ways to encourage me to make it through the day, to survive the day. But I am living proof that it is possible, that it, if you find things that make you happy, for me, sparkles makes me happy, and find ways to be kinder to yourself, and be okay with not being okay. Mental illness, as soon as I learned not to be afraid of my depression and be afraid of my anxiety, and not to hide it, that's when things got easier for me. Knowing that I had an actual diagnosis, that I was not imagining all of this, that I got some actual tools of what I could do to not feel like this every day, or to manage feeling like this every day, and to work on what makes me happy and what makes me feel safe and what makes me feel able to get through the day. I'm very pleasantly surprised at how good things can be. And I wish I'd known this, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that it's possible to live with depression, anxiety, severe depression, severe anxiety, and be in a place where I can say that I'm okay, and that I'm doing it, I'm living, and I'm living successfully. So this is a really long video. I'm sorry. I tried very, very hard to keep it short. And I just want to say that if you are watching this because you're living with something that you are thinking about getting help with, or don't feel like your help that you're currently getting is working, or if you're someone looking to support someone with mental illness, I just want to say firstly that I'm so proud of you, and I'm so grateful that you are looking for help or looking for how to help someone else, because you're needed in this world, and it took me a long time to realize that I could potentially be needed in this world, and that rather than being a burden on people, that there is some sort of positivity and hope that I could bring people. And so I just want to say to you again, so proud of you. You are 100% capable of living with whatever it is that you're struggling with, that it can and it does get better, and that with time, and time might sound like a scary thing, I know it did to me, it can and it does get better, and it's possible to not feel so bad all the time. It's possible, in fact, to feel good, and that will come.